Marcus Chen wiped his sweaty palms on his lab coat for the third time in 10 minutes. The Lunar Research Station's main hall had never felt so crowded. Scientists, diplomats, and military personnel from Earth packed the room, all waiting for their first official meeting with the Centaurian delegation. "Stop fidgeting," Dr. Sarah Thompson whispered, nudging him with her elbow. "You're our best xenobiologist. Act like it." Marcus nodded, trying to stand straighter. At 32, he was the youngest lead researcher at the station, and today could make or break his career. The Centaurians had specifically requested to see Earth's research on interspecies biology. The station's doors hissed open. Everyone fell silent. 3 tall figures walked in, their skin shimmering like mother-of-pearl under the bright lights. Marcus couldn't help staring at their 4-fingered hands and the way their eyes changed color, from deep purple to bright blue as they looked around the room. The tallest Centaurian stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Varrock. We thank you for your welcome." His English was perfect, though slightly musical, but Marcus barely heard him. His attention was fixed on the female Centaurian standing slightly behind the ambassador. Unlike the others' formal robes, she wore what looked like a scientist's uniform. Her eyes kept shifting between green and gold as she scanned the crowd, and when they landed on Marcus, they turned a brilliant amber. "And this is Corella, our lead biological researcher," Varrock was saying. "She will be working closely with your science team." Corella stepped forward, and Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Up close, her skin looked like opals catching sunlight, and her movements had an unusual grace that made human motion seem clumsy in comparison. "Dr. Chen," she said, her voice carrying a hint of chimes, "I have read your papers on xenobiological adaptation. They were fascinating." Her eyes swirled with flecks of silver as she spoke. Marcus cleared his throat. "Thank you. I'm honored. Your research on biochemical communication is revolutionary." Corella's skin rippled with what looked like waves of blue light. Several people gasped, but she didn't seem to notice. The formal introductions continued, but Marcus found it hard to focus. He kept noticing small details about Corella, the way her head tilted slightly when something interested her, how her fingers moved in delicate patterns when she spoke, the subtle changes in her skin's luminescence. Later, during the reception, Marcus stood in a corner, absently plucking at his old guitar. He'd brought it to the station as a reminder of home and often played during breaks. The simple melody of Yesterday filled his corner of the room. "What is this instrument?" Corella's voice startled him. She had approached so quietly he hadn't noticed. "Oh, it's a guitar. A classical guitar, actually." Marcus shifted to make room on the bench. "Would you like to sit?" Corella sat down, her eyes now a deep blue with gold specks. "The vibrations, they create patterns in the air, different from our music." She leaned closer, watching his fingers move across the strings. "Can you explain how it works?" For the next hour, Marcus found himself explaining everything from string theory to music history. Corella asked surprisingly detailed questions, not just about the science, but about how the music made humans feel. Her eyes changed colors rapidly as he spoke, and her skin occasionally flickered with soft lights. "Humans are unexpected," she said finally. "You create patterns of sound to express emotion, yet you cannot see the chemical signals that my people use for the same purpose. Fascinating." As she stood to leave, Corella turned to Marcus. "Would you be interested in cultural exchange lessons, Dr. Chen? There is much I would like to learn about human expression." Marcus nodded, perhaps too quickly. "I'd like that very much." Corella's skin glowed with a soft pink light as she walked away, leaving Marcus to wonder what that particular color meant. 3 weeks after their first meeting, Marcus sat across from Corella in the station's botanical garden. The artificial sunlight made her skin sparkle like diamonds. She was teaching him about Centaurian customs, but he kept getting distracted by the way her eyes changed color when she spoke passionately about her culture. "So, in your world," Marcus said, Checking his notes, you don't use words to say I'm happy or I'm sad. Corella's skin rippled with light patterns. Correct. We release specific chemicals. Each emotion has its own signature. She leaned forward, her eyes turning deep purple. That's why humans are so fascinating. You must speak or show your emotions through facial expressions. It seems inefficient. Marcus laughed. Maybe, but we manage okay. Show me more of your music, Corella said suddenly. It's the closest thing humans have to our chemical language. Marcus picked up his guitar, which he now brought to all their meetings. As he played a gentle Spanish melody, Corella's skin began to glow with soft waves of blue and gold. Beautiful, she whispered. The vibrations create feelings in my central nervous system, similar to how we process emotional chemicals. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by angry footsteps. Ambassador Varrock stormed into the garden, his skin flashing dark red patterns. Corella, this is inappropriate. His eyes were black with rage. You are here for official research, not to waste time with human entertainment. Marcus started to stand, but Corella raised her hand to stop him. Her skin showed steady, calm patterns of green and silver. Ambassador, she said firmly, these are cultural exchange sessions. Dr. Chen is teaching me about human emotional expression through music. It's valuable research. Varrock's skin flickered uncertainly. The council won't approve of such close contact. The council asked us to understand humans, Corella responded. Her eyes turned a fierce gold. How can we understand them without experiencing their ways of communication? Marcus watched the exchange with fascination. Even though he couldn't understand their biochemical signals, he could tell there was more being communicated than just words. After a tense moment, Varrock's skin settled into a dull orange. Very well. But remember your position, Corella. And you, Dr. Chen. He turned to Marcus. Be careful. There are things about us you don't understand. After Varrock left, Marcus turned to Corella. I'm sorry if I got you in trouble. No trouble, she said, but her skin showed rippling patterns Marcus had never seen before. Humans apologize so easily. Another fascinating trait. Later that evening, in his quarters, Marcus reviewed his notes from their sessions. Corella had taught him about Centaurian food, social customs, and their complex system of government. But something was bothering him. In every session, she seemed more interested in learning about human emotions than sharing information about her own people. His computer beeped with a message from Dr. Thompson. Marcus, some strange readings from your last meeting with Corella. Her biochemical outputs were similar to patterns we've seen in there. Never mind. Come see me tomorrow. Marcus stared at the message, then at his guitar. The way Corella had watched him play, the colors in her eyes, the patterns in her skin. Was there something he was missing? His door chimed. When he opened it, Corella stood there, her skin glowing with soft pink and purple swirls. I apologize for the late hour, she said, but there's something important I need to show you about our chemical language. Something that might explain why I find humans, why I find you, so interesting. Marcus felt his heart beat faster as he stepped aside to let her in. Whatever was coming next would change everything. Marcus's quarters felt smaller with Corella inside. Her skin was creating patterns he'd never seen before, swirling pink and purple lights that made the room glow softly. You should sit down, Corella said, her eyes shifting between gold and silver. What I'm about to tell you, it might be surprising. Marcus sat on his small couch, noticing how Corella chose to stand. She seemed nervous, which was strange for a Centaurian. In our culture, she began, we have a complex courtship ritual. It starts with what you might call testing the waters, sharing chemical signals to show interest. Marcus nodded, taking mental notes like the scientist he was. But his heart was beating unusually fast. For the past 3 weeks, Corella continued, her skin flickering rapidly. I have been sending these signals to you. Marcus blinked. You've been courting me. Yes. Corella's eyes turned deep blue. But humans can't detect our chemical signals. I forgot this simple fact. I've been expressing my interest in the way of my people, but you couldn't understand. Marcus stood up quickly, his mind racing. The color changes in your eyes, the patterns in your skin when we're together. All signs of attraction, Corella confirmed. When you play your guitar, my biochemical responses are similar to what happens when centaurians find their life partners. But that's... Marcus searched for words. That's impossible. We're different species. Corella moved closer. Are we so different? We both feel emotions. We both seek connection. We both create beauty. You with music, us with chemical songs. Suddenly, Dr. Thompson's strange message made sense. The unusual readings, the patterns they detected. The research team, Marcus said slowly. They noticed your chemical signals, didn't they? Yes. Dr. Thompson recognized the patterns from her studies of our mating behaviors. Corella's skin turned a deep rose color. She sent me a message asking about it. That's why I had to tell you tonight. Marcus sat back down, his head spinning. What happens now? That depends on you, Corella said softly. In our culture, if the interest isn't returned, we simply stop producing the attraction chemicals. No harm done, no embarrassment. And if it is returned, Corella's entire body lit up with hopeful patterns. Then we begin the formal courtship process. But her light dimmed slightly. I don't know how that would work with a human. Marcus stood again, walking to where his guitar leaned against the wall. He picked it up and began playing a gentle love song he'd learned years ago. Corella's eyes widened, turning the brightest gold he'd ever seen. On Earth, he said, still playing, we sometimes use music to express feelings we can't put into words. Corella moved closer, her skin creating waves of light that matched the rhythm of his music. You're responding to my courtship. I think I've been trying to, in my human way, Marcus admitted. Every time I played for you, every time I shared something about Earth, I was trying to connect. Just then, the station's warning system beeped loudly. Attention all personnel. Unusual chemical signatures detected in residential section 7. Please evacuate the area until environmental systems can analyze the composition. Corella's skin flushed with embarrassment. That would be my fault. Strong emotions create stronger chemical responses. Marcus couldn't help laughing. We're going to have to figure this out, aren't we? Find a way to make this work without evacuating the station every time we talk about feelings. Yes, Corella agreed, her eyes sparkling with multiple colors. But isn't that what love is about? Finding ways to bridge differences. As the evacuation alarm continued to beep, Marcus realized their real challenge was just beginning. How could a human and a centaurian build a relationship when even being in the same room might trigger station-wide alerts? But looking at Corella's hopeful expression, he knew they would find a way. The medical bay of the Lunar Research Station buzzed with activity. Marcus sat on an examination table while Dr. Thompson studied readings on her tablet. His head felt dizzy, and his hands wouldn't stop trembling. Your serotonin levels are off the charts, Dr. Thompson said, frowning at the numbers. And there are other changes in your brain chemistry that I've never seen before. In the next room, separated by a glass wall, Corella underwent her own examination. Her skin had taken on a dull gray color that made Marcus's heart ache. It's the prolonged exposure, the Centaurian doctor, Dr. Zittel, explained through the intercom. Human biochemistry is more sensitive to our emotional signatures than we thought. Dr. Thompson nodded. Marcus has been absorbing Corella's chemical signals for weeks. His body is trying to adapt. But she paused, looking worried. It's changing his brain chemistry. Is it dangerous? Marcus asked, watching Corella through the glass. She turned to look at him, her eyes a deep, sad blue. We don't know, Dr. Thompson admitted. This is the first time a human and centaurian have spent so much time in close contact. The effects could be temporary, or they could get worse, Dr. Zittel finished. The safest course of action would be to separate them immediately. Marcus stood up so quickly he almost fell. "No, there has to be another way." "Marcus," Dr. Thompson said gently, "you're not thinking clearly. The chemical exposure is affecting your judgment." "That's not true," he insisted. "Yes, I feel different. But my feelings for Corella started before the chemical changes. I know what's real." Corella pressed her hand against the glass wall. Her skin flickered with weak patterns of pink and gold, the colors of love in her people's chemical language. Marcus walked to the glass, placing his hand opposite hers. "The station chief wants you both quarantined," Dr. Thompson said. "At least until we understand what's happening." "No," Marcus said firmly. "I refuse." Dr. Stoll's skin flashed with surprise. "You could be risking your health, possibly your life." "Then help us find a solution," Marcus pleaded. "There must be a way to control the chemical exposure without keeping us apart." Grella's voice came through the intercom, weak but determined. "On my world, we have technology to dampen chemical signatures when needed. Perhaps we could adapt it for this situation." Dr. Thompson looked thoughtful. "That might work, but it would take time to modify it for human biology." "Then give us time," Marcus said. "Monitor us, study the effects, help us find a way to make this work. But don't separate us." The doctors exchanged looks. Finally, Dr. Thompson sighed. "I'll talk to the station chief, but you'll both need to undergo daily medical checks, and at the first sign of serious complications." "We understand," Corella said. Her skin had begun to regain some of its normal luster. Later, alone in the medical bay's observation room, Marcus and Corella sat side by side, careful to maintain a small distance between them. "I'm sorry," Corella whispered. "I should have realized my chemical signals might affect you this way." Marcus reached for her hand, ignoring Dr. Thompson's warning about contact. "Don't apologize. We'll figure this out." "How can you be so sure?" "Because," Marcus smiled, "humans are stubborn. When we want something badly enough, we don't give up. And I don't want to give up on us." Grella's skin glowed softly. "Even if it changes you, even if it's dangerous, some things are worth the risk," Marcus said simply. Through the observation window, both doctors watched the couple with concern. But neither Marcus nor Corella noticed. They were too busy planning ways to make their impossible relationship possible. Marcus stared at the news headline floating on his tablet. "Human Alien Romance Rokix Lunar Station." Below it was a photo of him and Corella in the botanical garden, his guitar in hand, her skin glowing with the telltale pink lights of affection. "How did they get this?" he muttered, scrolling through the article. "Someone on the station must have leaked the story." His door chimed. When it opened, Corella rushed in, her skin flickering with distressed patterns of gray and yellow. "Have you seen the news?" she asked, her eyes a stormy mix of colors. "Just now." Marcus put down his tablet. "Are you okay?" "The Centaurian Council is furious." Corella's skin darkened. "They're calling it a diplomatic disaster. My family." She paused, her voice trembling. "They're coming to the station." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "To take you home?" "I don't know." Corella sat heavily on his couch. "But that's not the worst part. Look at the Earth channels." Marcus switched screens. His heart sank as he read the headlines. "Alien influence, mind control or low V. And scientists warn of biological contamination." "They're afraid of us," Corella said softly. "Both our peoples." Before Marcus could respond, his tablet buzzed with an urgent message from Dr. Thompson. "Emergency meeting in conference room A. Bring Corella." They found the conference room packed with station officials, medical staff, and, to their surprise, Ambassador Varrock. But what really caught Marcus's attention was the tall, elegant Centaurian woman standing near the window. Her skin patterns were eerily similar to Corella's. "Mother." Corella's voice was barely a whisper. Lady Severa, as Marcus would learn was her name, turned to face them. Her eyes shifted through several colors before settling on a calm blue. "Daughter," she said, her voice musical like Corella's. "We came as soon as we could." Marcus braced himself for anger or accusations, but Lady Isvera's next words surprised everyone. "To support you, of course." Ambassador Varrock's skin flashed with shock. "My lady, the council's position." "The council," Lady Isvera interrupted, "does not understand what I learned years ago. Humans have something we lost long ago in our evolution: the ability to express emotions without chemical signals." She walked to Marcus, studying him with curious eyes. "When my daughter told me about you, about how you communicate through music and facial expressions, I knew this was important. This relationship isn't just about love. It's about rediscovering a part of ourselves we forgot." Dr. Thompson stepped forward. "Lady Isvera, are you saying that humans have emotional capabilities that Centaurians lost?" "Exactly." Isvera's skin rippled with excitement. "We became so dependent on chemical communication that we forgot how to express feelings in other ways. But humans," she gestured to Marcus, "you keep finding new ways to share your emotions. Music, art, poetry, even those little pictures you send in messages." "Emojis," Marcus said automatically, making Corella laugh. "The protesters on both worlds are afraid because they don't understand." Lady Isvera continued, "But this could be the beginning of something wonderful. A way for our peoples to learn from each other." The room fell silent as everyone processed this. Finally, Marcus spoke up. "So, you're okay with me dating your daughter?" Lady Isvera's skin lit up with patterns that looked remarkably like laughter. "Young man, I traveled across space to meet the human who taught my daughter to play guitar. Of course I'm okay with it." Corella moved to Marcus's side, her skin glowing with joy and relief. But Ambassador Varrock wasn't finished. "The council will still object," he warned. "And the Earth protesters." "Let them," Lady Isvera said firmly. "Sometimes love is the best teacher of all." "You want me to what?" Marcus stared at Lady Isvera in disbelief. They were in the station's new Centaurian laboratory, surrounded by strange equipment that glowed with soft blue light. Corella stood nearby, her skin showing nervous patterns of silver and green. "The courtship trial is our most sacred tradition," Lady Isvera explained patiently. "If you can pass it, no one, not even the council, can object to your relationship." Marcus looked at the small device on the table. It looked like a silver earpiece with delicate crystal patterns. "This will help me detect Centaurian chemical signals?" he asked. "Yes," Corella said. "Mother brought it from home. It's experimental technology, but it should let you sense our emotional language." Marcus picked up the device carefully. "And I have to learn to recognize all your emotional signals in 1 week." "Just the basic ones," Lady Isvera assured him. "Love, joy, sadness, fear, anger. The complex emotions can wait." Dr. Thompson, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "Is it safe? The last thing we need is more complications with his brain chemistry." "The device only translates the signals," Lady Isvera explained. "It doesn't let them affect his biology." Marcus took a deep breath and put the earpiece on. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the world exploded with new sensations. He could feel waves of emotion rolling off both Centaurian women. From Lady Isvera came a steady pulse of calm confidence, like a gentle breeze. But from Corella, "Oh," he gasped, overwhelmed by the intensity of her feelings. Love, worry, hope, and fear all mixed together in a beautiful storm of sensation. "Too much?" Corella asked anxiously, trying to dampen her emissions. "No," Marcus said quickly. "Just different. Amazing." Over the next few days, Marcus threw himself into learning the language of chemical emotions. Corella and her mother were patient teachers, helping him understand the subtle differences between similar feelings. But on the 4th day, disaster struck. During a crucial practice session, the device suddenly sparked and went dead. "No, no, no," Marcus muttered, frantically trying to restart it. The trial was tomorrow, and without the device, he had no way to detect the emotional signals he needed to identify. Corella's skin showed patterns of distress. "We can postpone the trial." "No," Marcus said firmly. He looked at the broken device, then at his guitar in the corner. Suddenly, he had an idea. "I've been thinking about this all wrong," he said. "I've been trying to learn your way of communicating, but maybe I should use mine." The next day, in front of a panel of Centaurian elders, Marcus faced his trial. But instead of wearing the translator device, he brought his guitar. "Honorable elders," he said, "I know I'm supposed to identify Corella's emotional signals, but instead, I'd like to show you how humans share emotions." He began to play, pouring everything he felt for Corella into the music. Happy memories became bright, joyful melodies. His fears turned into minor chords. His love flowed through every note. To everyone's amazement, Corella's skin began to glow in perfect harmony with his music. Her chemical emissions matched his emotional expression exactly. "Extraordinary," breathed the oldest elder. "He's not just identifying emotions, he's creating a dialogue between our two languages." Lady Severa's skin glowed with pride. Sometimes the best solution isn't to learn a new language, but to find a way for two languages to speak together. The trial was declared a success, but Marcus barely heard the announcement. He was too busy watching Corella's skin create beautiful patterns of joy that danced in time with his music. Dr. Thompson burst into the botanical garden where Marcus and Corella were having lunch. Her face was flushed with excitement, and she was clutching her tablet like it contained the secrets of the universe. "You need to see this," she said, practically running to their table. "Both of you." Marcus put down his sandwich. Corella's skin flickered with curiosity, creating ripples of light green. "We've been studying your medical scans," Dr. Thompson explained, pulling up complex diagrams on her tablet, looking for why Marcus can adapt to Corella's chemical signals when other humans can't. She placed the tablet on the table, showing two DNA strands side by side. The one on the left is human DNA. The right is Centaurian. She zoomed in on a specific section. "Look at this part." Marcus leaned forward, his scientific training kicking in. "That's impossible." Corella's skin pulsed with surprise. "They're almost identical." "Exactly." Dr. Thompson could barely contain her excitement. "This section of DNA is nearly the same in both species. It's the part that controls emotional processing and chemical communication." "But that would mean..." Marcus looked at Corella with wide eyes. "Humans and Centaurians share a common ancestor," Dr. Thompson finished. "Somewhere, millions of years ago, our species were connected." Corella's skin turned pale with shock. "How is this possible?" "We don't know yet," Dr. Thompson admitted. "Maybe ancient space travelers, or parallel evolution, or something we don't understand. But this explains everything. Why Marcus can adapt to your chemical signals, why you're drawn to human emotional expression. We're not so different after all," Marcus said softly, reaching for Corella's hand. Their moment of wonder was interrupted by Ambassador Viewership rushing into the garden, his skin flashing with urgent patterns. "The news is already spreading," he said. "Both Earth and Centauri Prime are in uproar. Some are calling it a hoax. Others are demanding more research." "Let them research," Dr. Thompson said firmly. "The evidence is clear." "The council wants Corella to return home immediately," Viewership announced. "They say they need to verify these findings." Corella's skin darkened with determination. "I won't leave. This discovery is too important. And too dangerous," Viewership warned. "There are those who don't want this information public, who prefer our species to remain separate." Marcus stood up. "Well, they're too late. Corella and I are living proof that humans and Centaurians can connect. We're not just a couple anymore. We're evidence." Dr. Thompson nodded. "And there might be more couples like you out there. Others who felt this connection, but were afraid to admit it." As if on cue, Marcus's tablet buzzed with messages. News channels from both worlds wanted interviews. Scientists requested research access, and most surprisingly, other human Centaurian couples were coming forward, sharing their own stories. "It's happening," Corella said, her skin glowing with hope. "The wall between our peoples is breaking down." Ambassador Varrock's skin showed conflicting patterns of worry and acceptance. "The Council won't like this. They prefer slow, controlled change." "Sometimes change can't be controlled," Marcus said, squeezing Corella's hand. "Sometimes it just needs two people brave enough to follow their hearts." Corella's skin sparkled with joy, or in our case, brave enough to follow both hearts and chemical signals. As they looked at the DNA evidence again, Marcus couldn't help smiling. Their love wasn't just changing their lives anymore. It was changing the understanding between two worlds. And somewhere in the vastness of space and time, their ancient common ancestors might be proud of how their descendants have found each other again. Marcus stared out the large window of the lunar station, watching Earth glow blue and white in the distance. Behind him, Corella's skin pulsed with anxious patterns of gray and silver. "They've given me 1 week to return," she said softly. "The Centaurian Council says it's a matter of planetary security." Marcus turned from the window. "Because of the genetic discovery?" "Yes." Corella's eyes shifted through worried colors. "They want me to lead a new research team on Centauri Prime. They say my experience with humans makes me the perfect choice." "Perfect choice," Marcus repeated bitterly. "More like perfect way to separate us." Dr. Thompson, who had been quietly working at her desk, looked up. "Not necessarily." "Marcus, remember that job offer you received?" Corella's skin flickered with interest. "What job offer?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit Corella had come to love. "The Centaurian Science Academy contacted me yesterday. They want me to join their xenobiology department on Centauri Prime. You could come with me." Corella's skin lit up with hope. "It's not that simple," Marcus sighed. "I'd have to leave everything behind. My work here, my family on Earth, everything I know. And adapt to a completely different world," Dr. Thompson added. "The gravity, the atmosphere, the food, everything would be challenging." Corella's skin dimmed. "Not to mention the social challenges. Even with our genetic link discovered, some of my people still don't accept human-Centaurian relationships." Marcus walked to the small table where his guitar sat. He picked it up, playing a few quiet notes. Corella's skin immediately responded to the music, creating gentle waves of light. "You know what's strange?" he said. "When I play and I see your skin react to the music, it feels more like home than Earth does sometimes." Dr. Thompson smiled knowingly. "Your brain scans show something interesting. When you're with Corella, your neural patterns actually sync with her chemical emissions. You two have developed a unique form of communication." "We're the first," Corella said. "The first to truly bridge our worlds." Marcus set down his guitar. "But what if we fail? What if I can't adapt to your world?" "Then we'll face it together," Corella said firmly, "like we faced everything else." Just then, Marcus's tablet buzzed. It was a message from Lady Isavera. "The Council has agreed to establish a new department, Interspecies Cultural Exchange. They need leaders who understand both worlds." Marcus read the message aloud, his voice growing stronger with each word. "They want us to run it together," Corella realized, her skin creating beautiful patterns of joy. "This isn't just about research, it's about helping others like us." Marcus looked around his small station quarters, at his guitar, his research notes, the small plants he'd been growing. Then he looked at Corella, whose skin was shimmering with love and hope. "You know," he said slowly, "Earth will always be here. But this chance, to be pioneers, to help others find what we found. Is that a yes?" Corella asked, her eyes sparkling with multiple colors. Marcus walked to her and took her hands in his. "When I first met you, my whole world changed. Maybe it's time to let it change again." Corella's skin erupted in patterns of pure happiness, filling the room with swirling lights. Dr. Thompson wiped a tear from her eye. I'll miss you both, but promise you'll send regular updates about your research. And our music, Marcus added, grinning. I have a feeling Centaurian concerts are about to get a lot more interesting. As they began planning their move to a new world, Marcus realized that home wasn't a place. It was wherever their two different ways of expressing love could exist together. 6 months had passed since Marcus moved to Centauri Prime. He stood at the front of a large classroom, watching as human and Centaurian couples filled the seats. Corella stood beside him, her skin glowing with pride. Welcome to the first official class of the Interspecies Communication Center, Marcus said, picking up his trusted guitar. It had traveled across space with him, and now it would help teach others. Corella stepped forward, her skin creating gentle patterns. Today, we'll show you how music and chemical signals can work together. A young human woman raised her hand. But I can't sense the chemical signals my partner makes. We've been together for a year, but I still feel like I'm missing half of our conversations. Her Centaurian partner's skin showed patterns of sadness. Many other couples nodded in agreement. Marcus smiled. That's exactly why we're here. He gestured to the wall where several silver devices hung, improved versions of the translator he had once used. But first, let me show you something we discovered. He began to play a soft melody on his guitar. Corella's skin responded with beautiful patterns of light and color. The Centaurians in the room gasped as they felt her emotional signals sync with the music. Music creates vibrations, Marcus explained. These vibrations affect the way Centaurians produce their chemical signals, and with practice, humans can learn to connect certain sounds with specific emotions. It's like creating a new language, Corella added, one that combines both our ways of expressing feelings. A Centaurian man spoke up, his skin showing curious patterns. Is that how you learn to understand each other? Partly, Marcus said. He put down his guitar and picked up one of the silver devices. But we also developed this. It's called the emotisense. It helps humans detect and understand chemical signals. And we created something for Centaurians too, Corella said, touching a small pendant around her neck. This helps us better understand human facial expressions and body language. The class spent the next hour learning how to use both devices. The room filled with laughter and glowing skin patterns as couples began understanding each other in new ways. After class, Dr. Thompson called from the lunar station. Her face appeared on the large screen, beaming with excitement. The medical results are amazing, she said. The couples using your devices are showing increased emotional synchronization. And get this, some humans are starting to develop natural sensitivity to chemical signals. Just like Marcus did, Corella said proudly, her skin sparkling. Exactly, Dr. Thompson agreed. Your story inspired so many people to come forward. We now have over 1,000 human Centaurian couples registered for research. Marcus looked around their classroom, at the happy couples practicing with their new devices. A year ago, people thought we were crazy. Now we're teaching others how to bridge the gap between our species. And there's more, Dr. Thompson added. The Council has approved funding for cultural exchange centers on 3 more planets. They want you to train teachers for each one. Corella's skin lit up with joy. Our little revolution is spreading. Love always finds a way, Marcus said, taking her hand. We just had to show people it was possible. As they watched their students practice, a young human Centaurian couple approached them. The human was trying to play a simple tune on a flute while his Centaurian partner's skin created matching patterns. Like this? The human asked nervously. Marcus and Corella exchanged happy glances. They remembered their own early days, figuring out how to communicate across the species barrier. Perfect, Corella said, her skin glowing with encouraging patterns. You're learning each other's languages of love. 1 year after opening their first interspecies communication center, Marcus and Corella stood on the observation deck of the new human Centaurian medical research facility. The building's curved windows showed both the purple skies of Centauri Prime and the bustling city below, where humans and Centaurians now lived and worked together. Remember when you first arrived? Corella asked, her skin creating patterns that matched the sunset colors. You could barely walk in our gravity. Marcus laughed. And you had to teach me which foods wouldn't make me sick. He touched the small translator device behind his ear, a newer, smaller version of the original. But look at us now. Dr. Thompson's hologram appeared in the room. Even through the projection, they could see her excitement. The latest medical results are incredible, she said. The children of human Centaurian couples are showing signs of natural chemical sensitivity and enhanced emotional expression. The best of both worlds, Corella said softly, her skin glowing with joy. And it's not just the children, Dr. Thompson continued. Long-term human residents on Centauri Prime are developing natural abilities to sense chemical signals. Your theory was right, Marcus. The potential was always in our DNA. It just needed the right environment to activate. Marcus walked to the window, watching a group of human children playing with young Centaurians in the garden below. Their laughter floated up, mixing with the shimmer of Centaurian joy patterns in the air. The council wants to expand the program, Corella said, joining him at the window. They're talking about building similar facilities on Earth. We've come so far, Marcus mused. Remember when Ambassador Varrock thought our relationship would cause a diplomatic disaster? As if summoned by his words, Varrock himself entered the observation deck. His skin showed the calm patterns of someone who had finally accepted change. Speaking of disasters, he said with good humor, I've come to ask for your help. My daughter has fallen in love with a human musician. Marcus and Corella exchanged amused glances. And you're okay with this? Marcus asked. Varrock's skin rippled with what they now recognized as embarrassment. Let's just say, you two taught me that love doesn't always follow diplomatic protocols. Later that evening, Marcus and Corella hosted a dinner party at their home. Their guests included human Centaurian couples, scientists, and even some of their former critics who had become supporters. Marcus brought out his old guitar, the same one that had first helped bridge their two worlds. As he played, Corella's skin created beautiful patterns that danced with the music. The other Centaurians in the room joined in, their combined chemical signatures creating a symphony of emotion that the humans could now feel and understand. I have something to tell you, Corella whispered to Marcus during a quiet moment. Her skin was creating patterns he'd never seen before, a new combination of joy, love, and excitement. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. After all this time, he could read her chemical signals almost as well as her words. Are you? Yes, she said, her skin glowing brighter. The doctors confirmed it this morning. We're going to have a baby. The first natural human Centaurian child. Marcus pulled her close, his emotions triggering his own faint chemical signals, another surprise gift from their shared genetic heritage. We might be different, he said, echoing her words from that first confusing day. But our love created something entirely new. Corella's skin sparkled with happiness. Not just a baby, she said, looking around at their gathered friends, at the city where their two species now lived in harmony. We helped create a future where being different doesn't mean being apart. Outside their window, the purple sky of Centauri Prime merged with the gathering darkness, just as two species had found a way to merge their hearts, their biology, and their futures into something beautiful and new.